On a sinister deep-sea expedition, we discovered 17 haunting secrets that should remain hidden. The early morning sun glimmered off the waves, but for the Williams family, today felt like standing on the edge of a yawning abyss. Michael, still grappling with the recent layoff, hoped this deep-sea fishing trip would bridge the widening chasm between him and his teenage children, Emily and Jake. They loaded the boat with fishing gear and snacks, excitement bubbling just beneath the surface. But unease crept in with every wave that lapped against the hull, whispering of the darkness that lay ahead as they navigated the waters. A shimmering outline caught their eyes in the distance: the abandoned oil platform. Its rusted beams jutted from the sea like skeletal fingers, looming with a haunting design, and vaguely resembling the carvings from old sailor-esque tales. Emily and Jake had been animated moments before, but now their laughter faded, replaced by the thickening tension in the air. Michael felt a shiver push through him. Legends of disappearances floated through his mind, the suffocating grip of superstitions intermingling with his thoughts. Just as he shook off the fear, the boat's navigation system blinked and went dark, stealing away their connection to reality. That a sharp burst of adrenaline shot through Michael as his phone lit up unexpectedly. The familiar name of a neighbor glared at him. It felt like a dark omen, dusted with warning. The text was cryptic, murmuring of hidden dangers surrounding the platform. Suddenly, his pulse quickened. "Hey, who asked that?" Emily called from the bow, breaking his reverie. His throat tightened, and he silenced the unspoken fear bubbling inside. Before the sun dipped below the horizon, an eerie silence swallowed the ocean. The wind howled softly, the only sound beyond the gentle splashing of the waves. Suddenly, unsettling whispers danced through the air. Were they real? Michael peered into the darkening waters, heart racing with every breath he took. Emily gripped the side of the boat, her eyes wide, filled with confusion and dread. Jake's jaw clenched in uncertainty. He felt their fear growing, thrumming like an uneasy rhythm threatening to snap. A storm of panic hit Michael. What was happening? The night descended rapidly, wrapping them in its inky embrace. Shadows loomed on the platform. Strange shapes moved, watching, waiting. Hot feelings of rage and anger swelled inside him. "Guys, it's just shadows. Relax," he said, forcing a calm he didn't feel. But doubt festered between them like an open wound. The kids' anxiety morphed into anger, tinging their voices with distrust, confronting him about their safety, their very lives. He could see the turmoil in their eyes, the flickers of fear that mirrored his own. Just as he was about to bark back, a figure appeared on the platform, silhouetted starkly against the chilling moonlight. They stood still, like a dark omen watching their movements. With every passing moment, the air thickened with dread. Michael felt the weight of something grotesque, something lurking beneath the water, ready to drag them under. His protective instincts screamed to flee, but inside, he feared the whispers of Millville were telling a different truth, one that could unravel everything. As they drifted into the depths of unknown terror, Michael couldn't shake the haunting thought: was it the platform watching them, or something else entirely? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The figure drew nearer, every step resonating through the cold air, amplifying the hollow pit in Michael's stomach. Was it just a trick of the light? He couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows themselves were alive. The ghosts of Millville's past stirred to life, clawing at his mind. Stories he dismissed as folklore now felt like spine-chilling truths. Danger didn't just lurk in the water. It was part of them, a creeping poison that threatened to sever their already fraying bond. Would this journey bring them together or tear them apart forever? As the chilling form approached, the dark history of Millville began to unravel. The night stretched on, consuming them, invitations to deeper horrors lurking just beneath the surface. The figure stepped into the moonlight, revealing a gaunt face twisted in a haunting smile. The skin looked like parchment, stretched tight over bone. Michael's breath caught in his throat. Beside him, Emily whimpered softly. Jake instinctively moved closer to his sister, their fear palpable. "Who are you?" Michael finally managed to ask, his voice trembling. The figure cocked its head slightly, as if savoring his fear. Silence washed over them, thick and suffocating. Then, it spoke, its voice a low, raspy whisper that felt like ice slithering down Michael's spine. "You shouldn't be here. This place feeds on the living. It craves your stories." Stories? The word echoed in Michael's mind, transforming into a haunting chorus of the legends he had disregarded. He felt Bradley's spine stiffen beside him. Fear translated into fight mode as Jake took a step forward. "Get away from my family," Jake shouted, voice breaking. "Run," Emily cried out, panic erupting in her tone. But Michael felt rooted, unable to tear his eyes from the figure. Something in its gaze held him captive. Clarity began to seep into his mind, mixed with terror, revealing the truth he had tried to deny about Millville and its past. The unseen danger wasn't just the depths below. It was the stories of the lost. It was this strange entity that was hungry for more. The figure stepped closer, extending a skeletal hand, beckoning them. "You can't escape. We'll keep you safe down here. Join us. Join the lost." A gust of cold wind rushed in, pushing the boat erratically. The shadows clinging to the abandoned platform swirled, as if alive, soaking in their fear. Emily clutched Jake's arm, both of them trembling as the strong pull of dread threatened to overwhelm them. "Michael, we need to go," Jake yelled, urgency in his voice. The fight or flight instinct kicked in, and Michael blinked, finally breaking free from the trance. With a surge of adrenaline, he reached for the ignition and twisted it, praying to hear the engine roar to life. Nothing. Just silence. The figure moved again, this time darting toward them with supernatural speed. Each movement sent a shudder traveling through Michael's spine. He fumbled with the keys, desperately willing the motor to respond. The weight of the air felt like a lead blanket, and their small boat trembled at the ominous presence pressing closer. "We can't stay," Emily gasped, eyes wide with terror, filled with unshed tears. The water suddenly erupted, a dark shape swirling beneath the surface. Michael felt it before he saw it, a massive shadow thrumming with life. Panic surged within him. This wasn't just a ghostly figure. It was a manifestation of the stories of what had happened here. He could feel the pressure building, the whispers rising again, clawing at the edges of their consciousness. "You belong here," they urged, growing louder. "Get back," Michael shouted, fumbling for anything he could use. They needed to escape, but every second felt like eternity. Just as he looked up, ready to scream at the entity again, another figure emerged from the depths. This one glistened in the moonlight, features as clear as the chosen, mere reflections of those lost long ago. "Help us," it pleaded, voice echoing with despair, a haunting melody of lost souls. Adrenaline pushed Michael's heart to thud mercilessly in his chest. But was it a plea for rescue or a trap? He felt the choice condense around them, thick and heavy, swirling in the dark waters like the shadows beneath that moment. Michael realized the truth slipped through his fingers like so many lost stories. They had not just come to fish. They were destined to uncover the tales buried within this sinister abyss. And to flee meant leaving behind a legacy they didn't even know they carried. But what would happen if they stayed? What stories would the deep sea reveal? "Michael, what should we do?" Emily's voice broke the haze, despair clawing its way back to the surface. An answer hung in the air, pregnant with dread. The boat lurched unexpectedly, drawing them closer to the swirling depths. Below, the shadows reached out like fingers, the call of the abyss rising. All was at stake. Would they accept the invitation, or could they break free from the grip of the haunted sea? As a thunderous crash of waves shattered the night, Michael felt the pull of the past, the stories of Millville begging for release. They were tangled in a web of fears and legends that awaited their choice. But little did they know, merely escaping might not be an option anymore. The boat rocked violently, the once calm water erupting into chaotic waves as if the lake itself was protesting their presence. Michael's heart raced. He had to act, had to get them away from this cursed platform and the haunting figure. But the key fumbled in his hands, a desperate flutter as he struggled with the ignition, a cracked rhythm of panic underscoring every swift movement. "Come on," he shouted, his voice cutting through the fear clinging to them like a second skin. But the engine remained mute. Behind them, the entity loomed, its form distorting in the flickering moonlight, twisting and warping like shadows cast in a fire. It grinned wider, teeth sharp and white, gleaming like the glacial depths of the lake. "Stay and learn," it rasped, the words curling around Michael's heart, squeezing the air from his lungs. The whispers grew louder, filling his ears, a cacophony of cries that seeped into his mind. "Your stories, we want your stories." Michael flinched. He hadn't come to share stories. He had come to escape, to leave the tales of Millville buried and forgotten. But the reality twisted under the weight of the figure's gaze, pulling him into its depths. "Jake, Emily," he managed, looking back to see panic mirrored in their faces. The boat lurched again, a sudden wave crashing against the side, water splashing up and soaking them. Emily let out a small gasp, her face pale like the moon above. He gritted his teeth. There had to be a way out. He gripped the keys harder, a sudden clarity sweeping over him. The whispered stories, they weren't just histories to be told. They were lives lived, tragedies unfolding beneath the tranquil surface. He felt it, an urge to cling to them, to rescue those lost souls. But at what cost? "Michael, please," Jake shouted, fear cracking his voice. "We have to go?" The plea jolted him. He mustered a determination fueled by his brother's cry, adrenaline coursing through him like fire. He turned back to the ignition one last time. With a deep breath, a flicker of hope ignited in him, and he twisted the key again. The engine roared to life, a deafening sound that shattered the haunting murmurs. For a split second, it felt like salvation. Then, a howl pierced the air, a chilling cry, filled with anguish. From the depths erupted dark tendrils, surging toward the boat, reaching, grasping, intent on dragging them under. Michael's heart dropped. The shadows were no longer just whispering. They demanded to be heard. "Row," he shouted, urgency spilling from his lips. "We need to get away now." Emily turned, panic etching deeper lines on her face, and Jake wasted no time, gripping the oars. With their hearts pounding like war drums, they worked feverishly, pulling against the tide, frantic strokes sending them far from the platform, from that malevolent figure. But as they rowed, the lake glimmered in strange hues, unfathomable and watched by unseen eyes. With each stroke, a ghostly figure surfaced behind them, a visage warped between horror and familiarity, serenity marked with shadows, yearning. "Join us," the voices echoed, hauntingly beautiful, and the icy chill gripped Michael's spine. Could he leave them behind? What if the stories were meant to be told? What if, by fleeing, he condemned them to an eternity of darkness? "Michael!" His sister screamed again, pulling him from his thoughts. "It's coming." He dared a glance back, but the figure was gone, swallowed by the abyss, the waters swirling in chaotic tempests. Yet he felt its presence, looming over the darkness, waiting, wanting, craving. Desperation clawed at him. They needed to reach the shore. They needed a plan. But the oppressive weight of the lake thrummed in the pit of his stomach, whispering tales of what lay beneath. Would it ever let them go? The shore seemed impossible to reach as the night stretched on, each stroke of the oars echoing against the eerie stillness, shadows creeping closer. And just as they neared the edge, a heart-stopping grip took hold of the boat. "What was that?" Emily cried, her voice panic-stricken. Michael froze. The water surged. Around them, more fevered than before. The thing below them stirred restlessly, restless in its hunger for more tales, more offerings. What awaited them at the shore? Would there be a way to break free from the stories that wanted to ensnare them forever? "Michael!" Jake's voice pierced through his reverie, but all he could do was stare into the depths, the unresolved histories stretching far beyond what he ever anticipated. What would the lake demand before they could escape? As a hand suddenly shot up from the shadows, clawing towards the boat, Michael knew they had little time left. The specters of Millville were rising, and with them, the echoes of untold secrets. What horror awaited just beneath the surface? The clawed hand slashed through the water, sending ripples tumbling out in frantic waves. Michael's breath caught, a sharp, icy grip closing around his throat. He shoved Jake, who was still leaning over the edge, trying to glimpse at whatever darkness lurked below. "Row! Row faster!" Jake's face was white, bone-tired from panic, but he nodded and pulled harder on the oars, gritting his teeth. The boat, once a flimsy barrier against the depths, now felt like an open wound in the midst of a tempest. Emily's screams rang out like sirens made of ice. "It's coming for us. It wants us." That voice, it wasn't the thing beneath them. It was something different, something human. A shiver clawed its way down Michael's spine, gnawing at the threads of his resolve. Why did it want them? What stories could they offer that would satiate the darkness? "Just keep rowing," he shouted, urgency pouring from him. He looked back, panic swirling with dread. The lake thrashed violently, bubbling like it was angry alive. Shadows flared and danced, mocking their efforts while tendrils twisted out once more. They were out of time, and the night pressed against them, thick with fear. Suddenly, a muted thrumming vibrated through the boat. It was subtle at first, but it grew louder, almost rhythmic, matching the pulse of their own racing hearts. "Did you hear that?" Jake said, pausing for a moment, eyes darting wildly. "Hurry," Michael urged, no longer sure if the real threat was beneath the surface or in their own unraveling sanity. With every stroke, he felt the weight below shift, as if something was rallying itself, preparing for a final strike. That a desperate thought hit him. The stories, the whispers, they were more than just echoes of the past. They were bonds, remnants pulling at old wounds. What if we give them a story?" He blurted out, half panic spilling over. "What if we tell them about Millville? About the town? Are you insane?" Emily sputtered, her face a mask of disbelief. Desperation made him reckless. "They might let us go. We tell them. We can distract them. What if it doesn't work?" Jake shouted back, his voice rising in pitch with every frantic glance at the murky depths that churned just beneath them. "Then we're dead anyway," Michael shot back, his voice breaking. Emily's eyes gleamed. "Fine. Let us do it. What do we tell them?" The howling wind carried their words across the water, but it was muffled, drowned by the approaching swell. "The cursed man of Millville. The one who lost everything to the darkness," Michael started, stammering. He was the only survivor of a twisted truth. Suddenly, the boat jerked violently, a horrific surge like the growling of a beast from the depths, disrupting their frantic storytelling. Water gushed over the sides as the shadows twisted below. A powerful grasp flung itself at the boat, teeth snarling to break the surface. "Michael!" Jake's scream tore through the air as a massive shadow erupted from the dark water, a gaping maw, unnaturally wide, split open to reveal rows of jagged teeth that glistened like shards of ice. In that moment, the lake resonated with a loud, echoing roar that silenced all else stories, intertwined as the cries of the lost wove into one haunting symphony. They had reached the shore, but the monster claimed them faster than light, dragging the boat back, pulling them closer into its darkness. Amidst the cacophony, Michael's heart sank deeper. It demanded stories, but what if now it only wanted blood? With a sudden lunge, cold fingers wrapped around Michael's ankle, yanking him toward the edge of the boat. He grasped the side, his fingers scraping against the wood as terror poured through him. "No, not like this. Michael!" They shouted his name, but the shadows were swallowing their voices in that instant. An idea sparked a desperate plea. "We will tell them the truth. But first, we have to survive." The shadows twisted and changed, echoing back the tale of their own every loss and longing, and Michael realized a shocking truth. The monster beneath the lake craved not just stories, but their doom. As adrenaline surged, shadows cloaked in rage tightened their grip, a chilling reminder of the deal struck with the dark. They would know soon what horrors awaited those who opened their mouths to the truths better left unsaid. But as they teetered on the very edge of being pulled under, what other secrets would emerge from the stories they never wanted to tell? Would they survive to witness the final confrontation with the lake itself? The boat lurched again, a violent jerk that nearly sent Michael overboard. Panic gripped him like the icy fingers still clenching his ankle. "Hang on," he yelled, a desperate urgency lacing his voice. He kicked and flailed, trying to shake off the vice-like grasp of whatever was pulling him down into the depths. Emily and Jake struggled to keep the boat steady, their eyes wide with fear, their breaths ragged, but it was as if the lake had a mind of its own. The surface churned, monstrous waves crashing against them, drowning out their shouts. "It's too strong," Emily cried, her voice drowned by the storm of shadows below. "Don't let go of the boat." Jake screamed, his knuckles white on the oars. "Michael, you have to fight." The claws were relentless, pulling with an unyielding strength. Michael's heart raced, each pulse reverberating within him like a war drum. The darkness below seemed to vibrate with a hunger, a need that was perverted and insatiable. "I want to let it take me," Michael grunted, his fingers digging into the splintered wood. "Tell it a story." "Now," Emily urged, scrambling to keep herself stable. The words kept spilling out, a frantic stream of ideas that flowed faster than he could grasp. "The man of Millville," he shouted, voice hoarse. He just cursed it. He made a pact. He believed he could capture the shadows. A flicker of hope ignited in Emily's eyes. "Yes, keep going." Every soul he caught fed the lake, and each time he failed, it dragged him deeper into its darkness. For a brief moment, the shadows paused. The grip around his ankle loosened just enough for him to pull himself back onto the boat, gasping for breath. But it was a reprieve, not a salvation. The water roiled, as if enraged by their words. "That's it. It wants more," Jake yelled, fear transforming his face. "Don't stop." The shadows surged as Michael continued. He sought vengeance against the lake for stealing everything: his family, his love. In desperation, he did the unthinkable. "Faster!" Emily shouted, her voice blending with the growing roar of the lake. "What do you want from us?" Michael yelled into the abyss, desperation lacing his throat. "You want our secrets? Our pain? Take it. Just let us go." But the shadows didn't relent. Instead, they writhed and twisted, the darkness seeming to come alive with an angry pulse. "A sacrifice," Emily gasped as another wave knocked her backwards. "He sacrificed something to gain power. Something he loved. Maybe it wants that." "Yes," Jake shouted, his eyes wide, realization striking like lightning. The lake shuddered, the creature beneath responding to their stories, hungry and furious. "It wants blood," he screamed. Michael's heart sank. The beast relished their knowledge, their fears. "Then it's too late for us." Suddenly, the water exploded in a tumultuous spray. The shadows began to merge into something tangible, rising from the depths: humanoid shapes with eyes like voids, gaping mouths that did not speak but laughed. Each figure dripped with the history of the lake's curses. "We're running out of time," Emily gasped, her voice barely a whisper against the raging storm around them. "What if it takes us all?" The shadows surged, and Michael knew there had to be an end to this. "We need to finish the story." The man he realized too late that what he sacrificed would never be enough. "No," Jake screamed as the figures lunged forward, eyes glinting with hunger. "We have to find a way to break the cycle," Michael shouted, all too aware that they were on the cusp of being claimed by the very darkness they sought to understand. Then, as the water thundered and crashed, silence fell. It was eerie, a brief stillness before the lake erupted again, the beast's roar echoing their own despair. What would it demand next? What truth would seal their fates? As Michael held onto the boat for dear life, his skin prickling with dread, he realized the shadows were still listening, waiting for the final tale to echo among the depths. And with that realization came a chilling question. Where would they find the last thread of story that could save them, or would it be the final nail in their coffins? The heavy silence shattered with a sharp snap, like the sound of a twig underfoot. In that moment, fear hung in the air, thick as fog. Michael felt it, a weight pressing down on him. He could still see the creatures rising, the darkness spilling over into the moonlight, their forms shifting and undulating like smoke caught in a draft. The boat rocked ominously beneath them, the wooden hull creaking in protest. "Finish the story." Emily's voice cut through the tension, desperate and raw. "We need to break their hold." Gritting his teeth against the growing dread, Michael scrambled for more words. The man thought he could enslave the lake. But he didn't realize that every story has a villain, one who will always want more. The shadows lunged closer, their laughter echoing in a haunting symphony. With each word he spoke, the lake roared back, an angry beast responding to its master. He plowed ahead. He became the very darkness he feared, haunting the shores, waiting for unsuspecting victims to tell their own tales of grief. And as he spoke, Michael felt an incredible force ripple through the lake. The water churned violently, swallowing up any hope. No, It's pushing back, Jake shouted, his eyes wide with fear. Emily grabbed Michael's arm, grounding him. We can't let it swallow our story. We need to seize control. But I don't know how. Michael spat, the panic clawing at him like invisible talons. Eyes blacker than ink narrowed at them. Figures began to emerge fully. Grotesque shapes formed from despair, mouths stretching into grins that revealed teeth, jagged and dripping. The entities shifted and glimmered under the glinting moon, reflecting fragments of their own misery back at them. It was a ghastly tableau, twisting hope into despair. Remember the legend, Emily shouted, her voice piercing through the chaos. The man sought not just power, but absolution. We need to offer something in return. What do we have? Michael rasped, desperate to find an answer that might save them. We've got nothing. Then we give them a memory. Jake suggested frantically, something we do anything to forget. The realization surged through Michael, a tidal wave of terror. Memories, deeply buried truths, what had he hidden from himself? The phrase echoed inside him like a drum. Offer the pain. I once lost someone. He yelled over the gathering storm, the shadows seizing upon his words, eager for the narrative. My sister, I was supposed to protect her, but I failed. I never forgave myself. The air stirred violently, trembling with an intensity that made his skin crawl. The shadows writhed, drawn to his confession, their eyes boring into him. It wants our guilt, Emily exclaimed, her face a mask of terror and determination. Take it, he screamed, take my pain. Just let us go. A sudden surge of energy shot through the boat. Michael felt a jolt, like the rush of static before a storm. The whispers grew louder, the dark figures recoiling momentarily, shifting like smoke in a gust of wind. But then, a new voice joined the cacophony, familiar yet distorted. It was soft, echoing from the depths, laced with a sorrow that was both his own and foreign. Why did you forsake me? Cold dread slithered down Michael's spine. It was his sister's voice, a haunting melody that played in the back of his mind. The shadows twisted and spun, their hunger revived, morphing into a mass of vision and agony. Michael, no? Emily gasped, collapsing against the edge of the boat, eyes wide and horrified. I never meant, he started, but the shadows surged at him, a collective vengeance drawn from the depths of his own guilt. Was he truly prepared to face the consequences of uncovering this darkness? With one last desperate cry, Michael reached for the very darkness he had feared for so long. What would it take to silence the torment? Would his final sacrifice be enough to release their souls from the depths, or would it consume them entirely? The wind howled, and the lake roared, drowning out his plea. As he felt the shadows envelop him, the question swirled in his mind. What happens when the past tries to drown you in its depths? The shadows clung to Michael, twisting around him like a living shroud, drawing closer. He could feel the cold seep into his bones, an icy grip that snatched at his breath. The voice echoed again, this time louder, more desperate. You left me, Michael. Why? A scream bubbled in his throat, but it was swallowed by the darkness that thrummed with sorrow and rage. Emily's eyes, wide with terror, reflected the chaos as she reached through the inkiness for him. Michael, fight it. Don't let it take you. Despair clawed at him, ripping away his resolve like paper in a storm. He could feel the memories flooding in his sister's laughter, the way she used to chase fireflies on summer evenings, the day he failed to save her. Each recollection pushed deeper into his soul, filling him with dread. Jake's voice broke through, frantic as the boat rocked beneath them. What do we do, Michael? We can't lose you. We need to find a way. And in that moment, a glimmer of clarity sparked through the dark. Maybe it wasn't just about the pain. What if there was a way to turn this nightmare back on itself? I need to remember her, he shouted. Not just the loss, but everything. The love, the joy. The shadows hesitated, the twisted forms recoiling slightly as if taken aback by his defiance. Emily's grip on his arm tightened. Yes, fight for the good memories. Remind them of light. With each breath, Michael clung to those moments. He envisioned her smiling face, the warmth of her hand in his, the way she believed in him. I loved her. I still love her, he cried, his heart racing as the darkness swirled, hungry, but begrudgingly softened by the light of his memories. It was then he saw them, a flicker of shadow splitting against the soft glow of recollection that pulsed with every word he spoke. The twisted faces around him began to flicker, momentarily revealing their humanity. They were lost souls, just like him, trapped and searching for release. "Can you hear me?" he called out, feeling the echoes of their pain resonate within himself. "You don't have to remain here. Release your sorrow." As he spoke, the shadows surged, momentarily fracturing into wisps of light, releasing their mournful cries into the air. But then the glimmer faded, and the darkness rushed back, more furious than before. The air thickened, and Michael felt the weight of regret press down on him, pulling him into the depths. "We need to go now," Jake shouted, scrambling to grab Emily as she teetered on the brink of the boat. But the darkness screamed back, echoing the cries of anguish he could barely comprehend. "You think you can take him from us, Michael?" Emily shouted, her voice almost lost under the torrent of sound. "Hold on to us. Don't let go." But the shadows enveloped him once again, pushing him further into that abyss of guilt and fear. The last of the good memories seemed to flicker, fading like dying stars in a black sky. "You don't understand," he screamed, drowning in confusion. "This isn't just my story. I can't betray them again." The water beneath the boat erupted violently, spewing waves that crashed against them. It felt alive, thrumming with resentment. And then, a horrifying realization struck. Something darker was stirring beneath the surface. The lake was awakening, summoning something ancient that lurked at its core. A powerful roar erupted from below, echoing his sister's distorted wail, now merging with an ominous chant. "Release us." Dark shapes surged from the lake's heart, thrashing violently toward the boat. Michael's heart raced, each beat pounding in his ears. "They want to let us go." Over the din, he could barely hear Emily, trembling though unwavering. "We have to finish your story. Find the ending." Before he could respond, darkness engulfed him. The lake convulsed, and he knew they were all about to be drawn into an eternal tale of woe unless he could harness the remaining light within his soul. And then he found it, the hint of a spark, that sliver of hope concealed deep in his fear. "If the past tries to drown us, what do we do?" He whispered into the void. The shadows quivered at his whisper, the answer hanging heavy in the air. The lake's monstrous depths stirred, and from its abyss, a whisper echoed back through the chaos. "Then we fight to write our own fate, what awaited above or below the shadows that threatened to consume them, or the unchained spirits they sought to release." The answers lurked just beyond the dark, and Michael was about to plunge further into the unknown. The water roiled violently beneath them, the shadows swirling like a tempest wrapped in a nightmare. Michael felt the grasp of despair tighten around him. He struggled to keep those precious memories of Emily alive, but every moment he clung to seemed to fade into black. "Michael, focus on me." Emily's voice pierced through the chaos, her eyes glowing like twin lanterns against the inky void. But even her light seemed to flicker as the shadows groaned, a cacophony of lost souls echoing their torment. The darkness threatened to swallow her voice whole. "Fight, Michael!" Jake shouted, panic in his voice. The boat bucked violently, knocking them all closer to the edge. Water sprayed like daggers across Michael's face. He couldn't lose them, not now. The figures in the darkness twisted and writhed, their mouths moving in silent screams as if begging for salvation. Each face flickered under the weight of his memories, taunting him with familiar features. What had he done? "Remember the light," he whispered, forcing his thoughts to gather some thread of courage. Memories flooded back. Emily laughing at a surprise birthday party, her hand in his as they chased those fireflies. He felt a jolt of warmth ignite in his chest, but the shadows writhed violently in response, snarling, yearning for him to succumb to despair. "You think you can save them?" A shrill voice hissed from the depths. "You abandoned them first." Panic surged through him. "No," Michael yelled, pushing back against the tide of guilt. "I will not abandon anyone anymore." He thought of his sister. She had never backed down. In that moment, the boat lurched violently. One of the dark forms rose higher than the rest, a figure he recognized. "Emily!" he screamed, reaching for her. But she was slipping. "Michael, hold on!" Jake cried, trying to pull Emily back from the edge. But the shadows were relentless, dragging her away as Michael's heart raced. "No!" The word erupted from him as he lunged forward, grabbing Emily's wrist just as a wave of darkness crashed against them. He felt the intensity of her fear, shocking him to the core. "Michael!" she screamed, and suddenly, the shadows recoiled. They shivered and shrank back, as if recognizing her pure spirit. "I won't let you go," he shouted, channeling every flicker of memory, every ounce of love he held for her. "I love you. We're in this together." The shadows writhed with fury, but the light of his feelings pierced through, illuminating the dark. For a brief moment, clarity broke through. The twisted forms morphed into familiar faces, beleaguered yet hopeful. Emily's eyes sparkled in the shimmering hue of memory as she wrapped her fingers around his. Then the waters trembled underneath them, the roar of ancient echoes rising louder, shaking the very foundation of their world. "Release us!" it howled. The monstrous chant seemed to pull at the boat, dragging them toward the abyss. "Together!" Jake yelled, struggling to maintain his footing. "We have to fight." With a surge of desperation, Michael gathered those memories like a shield. "We won't give up," he cried, the pulse of their love binding them like a rope of light against the pulling darkness. But then a sudden silence fell. The shadows hesitated, as if caught off guard by their united stand. For a fleeting moment, the agony twisted into an eerie calm. A choice hovered in the air, thick and heavy. Could they seize this moment? What now? Michael's breath trembled, his heart pounding like a war drum. And then, a chilling realization crashed over him. They had to confront the entity pulling the strings, the darkness that bound the souls. But how could they face something that thrived on their guilt? "Find it!" he shouted into the stillness with newfound determination. "We need to find its source." The water beneath them flickered ominously, revealing glimpses of ancient dread that hovered just below the surface. The heartbeat of the lake matched his own, frantic and pulsing, but the shadows rumbled again, psychotic laughter echoing through their twisted forms, a sinister celebration surrounding their uncertainty. "You think you can fight us? You can never escape your past." Michael stepped forward, trembling yet resolute. Someone has to believe there, in the depths, as the lake bubbled with rebirth, a silhouette emerged, dark and foreboding. It was waiting. But for what? With every eye locked on the swirling depths below, the question remained, did they dare confront it? Or would they all become just another part of its tragic tale? The silence shattered. A pulse radiated from the silhouette, a deep thrum that resonated inside Michael's chest. He felt Jake and Emily beside him, but their presence felt distant, almost like shadows themselves. "Michael, get back!" Jake shouted, lunging, as a jagged form erupted from the depths. It coiled and writhed, a monstrous, gaping maw with endless blackness festering at its core. It was impossibly large, a creature born of nightmares and despair. Michael's heart raced as he staggered back, the boat rocking ominously beneath them. "What is that thing?" he breathed, paralyzed by fear. "Confront it," Emily cried, the light in her eyes dulled by encroaching dread. "It's feeding off your fear." The creature shrieked, a sound that echoed through the water and shook the very air. It was a cacophony, 1,000 voices crying out, each one more haunting than the last. "You belong to us, Michael," it howled, drawing nearer. "You cannot escape what you are." "No, I won't," Michael shouted back, summoning all the strength he had. "You're wrong." But with every scream, the shadows flickered around them, blurring the lines of reality. The boat dipped low, water splashing like a desperate response to the creature's dark will. "Feel the weight of your betrayal," it roared, the tumultuous waves swallowing Michael's protest. The memories rushed in again, his father's disappointed eyes, his mother's silent tears. They surged forward, shoving him into a pit of swirling despair. "Remember, Michael," the creature hissed, "you let them drown. They were never safe with you." "Stop," he exclaimed, clutching his head. "I can't take this." But each word of the creature dug deeper, twisting the knife of guilt that had long festered in his soul. Jake grabbed his arm, desperation pouring from him. "Michael, focus. You can beat this. Remember Emily. Remember us." At that mention, Michael felt a flicker of warmth cut through the shadows. He thought of Emily's laughter, their hands entwined beneath the stars. But as quickly as it came, the warmth faded, submerged by a wave of icy twilight. The creature lunged, snapping its ghastly mouth wide open, revealing rows of jagged teeth like tombstones. Spectral faces swirled within, their despair etched in time, his sister's face among them, her eyes pleading. The agony gripped him, and he fell to his knees, his defenses crumbling. No, not her. Get up, Michael, Emily screamed, her voice piercing through the fog of despair. We'll face it. Together. He rose, eyes burning with defiance, but it was clouded. He could still see her face twisted in turmoil, the creature feeding off their shared fears. You think that we can win? The darkness cackled, splashing its icy grip over the boat. This is your reality. Always your past, echoed the shadows, their voices swirling into a psychic maelstrom. They tugged at him like a cocoon, warping the space where he stood. Visions of failure flood your mind. Submit. The creature bellowed. Lightning split the sky. Thunder rolled around them, and in its wake, a moment of clarity struck Michael. No, he cried, fists clenched. This ends now. He grabbed Emily and Jake, pulling them close as the cold water surged. We will fight together, he declared, his voice ringing with newfound strength. They formed a barrier, their clasped hands glowing bright against the dark waves. But would it be enough? The creature screamed, charging at them, and the shadows whipped into a frenzy. The boat pitched violently, threatening to capsize. As the maw of darkness lunged, ready to consume them, Michael's mind raced. What had they missed? Where was the true heart of this horror? Look down, Emily yelled, as if a spark of realization lit in her eyes. We have to face our own darkness. But how could they defeat an entity that thrived on their despair? The shadows coiled tighter, ready to ensnare. And just when hope seemed a cruel mirage, a buried memory broke through their laughter, moments of joy, the love that transcended even death. Unlock it, he shouted, and the boat shook violently, thrumming with their energy. Would their collective love shatter the chains binding them? Would this finally unleash the horrible truth behind the lake's curse? As shadows twisted against the light, the battle was just beginning. The tempestuous water roared, crashing against the sides of the boat like a furious beast desperate to reclaim its prey. The darkness roiled beneath, stirring deep and ancient. Michael clutched Emily and Jake, their hands swathed in a protective grip. The entity above snarled, a monstrous hunger etched in its gaze, and its anguished bellow echoed through the night like distant thunder. Face it, Emily shouted, unwavering even as terror danced in her eyes. Use everything we've got. Yes, Jake cried, the adrenaline surging through him. Together, in unison, they shouted, we are not your stories. The words rang out against the chaos, a declaration of defiance against the darkness. But the shadows beneath shifted, coiling tightly around the boat. The water churned violently, and Michael felt the fear envelop him like a cold shroud, squeezing him tighter until he could hardly breathe. As he fought to resist the pull of despair, a flicker of clarity ignited within him, a memory of laughter, the warmth of summer days lost but never forgotten. Remember her? Jake's voice broke through, urgent and fierce. Michael's heart surged. Remember love? He echoed, his voice stronger, louder. Remember hope? The shadows hesitated at the sound of their unity, unsure how to metabolize the incandescent light of their feelings. Keep going, Emily urged, her eyes gleaming with fierce resolve. We've got to break through that darkness. Michael took a deep breath and poured his heart into his words. This darkness only thrives on our fear. It cannot survive the stories of love, of laughter, of everything we hold dear. We rise above the pain. The shadows recoiled momentarily. A soft light flickered at the edges of the boat, born from their shared resolve and memories. The creature snarled, pulsating with rage as the moment of calm ushered in a wave of power. Hold tight, Michael shouted. He released a torrent of truth, everything he had kept buried. I lost someone close to me, but I remembered her not in grief, but in joy. She was my sister. She showed me love, and I will carry her with me forever. The glow brightened, drenching the boat in cerulean light that cast the shadows back. The dark maw shrieked, disoriented, recoiling at the brilliance that erupted from their combined hearts. Let it go, Michael, Emily cried, her voice unfaltering amidst the chaos. Show them who we are. The memories surged, joy intertwined with sorrow. The sunlight glimmering off fireflies, the way laughter seemed to chase away the dark, the hugs that soothed ache and fear, all penetrating the suffocating gloom. We're more than our fears, more than our failures, Jake shouted, rallying behind his brother's call. Our stories don't end in pain. They continue in love. With every heartbeat, the luminous warmth enveloped them, knitting their spirits together in light. The shadows writhed, attempting to fight back, but their efforts were futile against the bonding energy of memories shared. We forgive our past, Michael declared, sheer willpower throbbing beneath his skin. We forgive ourselves. We break the cycle now. The light pulsated, more radiant than the creature could withstand. The shadows shrieked in a cacophony of loss, tumbling like ash in the wind, scattering against the waves that thrashed with fervor. Let the stories go, Emily and Jake echoed, their voices synchronizing in a final heartbeat of defiance. As they channeled all that they were: sister, brother, love. Lost, the darkness burst apart, dissolving like smoke chased away by the light. The echoes of those once lost sang back to them, their narratives freed from the crush of despair. In the end, the water calmed, as if a great weight had been lifted. The sun began to rise on the horizon, colors painting a gentle blend of light across the sky. The platform's shadow fell away with the shadows, revealing the broken memories no longer a prison but relics of strength. Breathless, Michael slumped back against the boat, clutching his sister and brother close. Tears streamed down Emily's face, but this time they were of relief. Jake's hands trembled as he held the oars, and for the first time, there was light in his eyes, a promise of a future unchained from guilt. They made it. I can't believe we did it, Emily whispered through a cracking smile. We faced the darkness. Michael pulled them both tightly in a fierce embrace. Together, always together. As they started their journey back toward the shore, the waters shimmered beneath the early morning sun, a silent witness to the struggles and a newfound understanding. And now, the shadows could no longer close in. They had forged their own stories, unbroken and renewed. Once back on land, Michael, Emily, and Jake shared the tales intended for lost souls, keeping alive the essence of what had been revealed. It wasn't just an escape. They had embraced their legacy, transformed pain into power, and rewritten their fate. It was time to let the past go. It was time to write a brighter future. And as they stepped away from the haunted shores of Millville, the ocean sang a new song, their song, crafted through courage, love, and the fierce unity of hope. Now they knew those stories would never fade. Before you go, here's what you must do. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss these exclusive stories as we dive into even crazier tales. And if you enjoyed this conclusion, smash that like button now. Seriously, it feeds the algorithm. I want to hear your thoughts and reactions, so flood the comments section below. Don't forget to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Let's keep the journey alive together.